There is a black quilted handbag sitting in a Chanel boutique right now that costs more than a full year of tuition at most public universities in America. It's the Chanel Maxi Classic Flap. In 2010, it cost $3,700. Today, in 2026, it costs $13,200. That's a 257% increase on the exact same bag, same leather, same design in 16 years. Chanel's official explanation, given directly to the press, is simple. A spokesperson once put it this way: prices are set according to the cost of making the bag, and like the rest of the luxury industry, Chanel has been dealing with rising costs for raw materials and labor. That sounds fair. Leather costs more, skilled labor costs more, except when you actually lay Chanel's own numbers next to that explanation, the story starts falling apart in ways that are almost embarrassing for a company this size. Today, we're breaking down exactly why rising costs cannot explain a 257% price jump, what Chanel's own financial filings reveal about where that money is actually going, and why this bag has quietly turned into one of the most calculated pricing operations in fashion. Stick around, because the ending of this story is not what most people expect. First, a bit of history, because it matters here more than usual. In February 1955, Coco Chanel got tired of carrying handbags under her arm. She designed a quilted leather bag with a chain strap so she could finally have both hands free, and she named it the 2.55, after the month and year it was born. It wasn't built to be a status symbol, it was built to solve an actual problem. Nearly 30 years later, in 1983, Karl Lagerfeld took over as creative director and reworked it, swapping the original clasp for the now famous interlocking double C turn lock. That version, the one that became the modern classic flap, launched at around $1,000, which works out to roughly $3,000 in today's money. So even accounting fully for inflation since the 1980s, today's price is still wildly out of proportion. Something else is driving this number. Let's look at the actual timeline, because the pattern tells you everything. In 2019, the medium classic flap cost $5,800. By 2020, it was $6,500. By January 2021, $6,800. By July of that same year, $7,800. By November, $8,800. That is 3 separate price increases inside a single calendar year. By 2023, the bag crossed $10,000 for the first time in its history. In August 2025, Chanel raised it again. In April 2026, it went up once more, landing at $11,700 for the medium and $13,200 for the maxi. Over that 16-year window from 2010 to 2026, cumulative inflation in the U.S. landed somewhere around 50%. The medium classic flap rose by over 300% in that same window. That is roughly 6 times the pace of inflation. Raw material costs did not increase 6 times faster than everything else on Earth. That explanation simply does not survive contact with the calendar. So if it's not costs, what is actually happening? Here's where Chanel's own financial results get interesting. In their 2025 annual report, Chanel posted $19.3 billion in global revenue, up 2% from the year before, and operating profit of $4.7 billion, up more than 5%. Yet in the same report, net profit actually fell nearly 14%, down to $2.9 billion. That's an important detail, and to be fair to Chanel, it's worth stating plainly. This tells us something real is happening on the cost side of their business, particularly around heavy investment in real estate, new boutiques, and raw materials. So no, this isn't a case where every dollar of a price increase becomes pure profit with nothing behind it. Some of this is genuinely funding real expansion. But here's the problem with using that to justify the size of these specific bag increases. Chanel's own CFO told reporters that 2025's price increases were deliberately kept modest, in line with inflation, running about 3% overall and 2% specifically for fashion items. Compare that to what actually happened to the classic flap over the past 16 years. If Chanel genuinely priced this bag purely on cost, you would not see a company describe its current strategy as restrained while sitting on a bag that has still tripled in price since 2010 and increased 257% on the maxi specifically. Restrained pricing and a 257% cumulative jump cannot both be true descriptions of the same product line. One of these statements is doing PR work, and it isn't the one about restraint. Now, here's the part that most coverage of the story completely misses. In recent years, Chanel introduced something most customers never hear about until they're standing at the register: a purchase quota. Boutiques began limiting customers to a maximum of one classic bag per transaction, and in some markets, a maximum of 2 classic flaps per year, regardless of how much money you're willing to spend that day. Think about what that actually means. Chanel isn't just raising the price of the object, it's simultaneously restricting how many of that object any single person is allowed to own. That's not a cost-driven decision. Leather doesn't get more expensive because you're buying a second one. That's a scarcity decision, engineered specifically to keep demand higher than supply, which is the single most reliable way to keep resale prices climbing and keep the waiting list feeling meaningful. And the resale market proves the scarcity strategy is working exactly as designed. Sotheby's and several resale platforms have tracked Chanel classic flat pricing against inflation for years, and the bag has consistently outpaced it, sometimes rising over 17% in a single year, more than double the inflation rate during that period. Pre-owned classic flaps in excellent condition routinely sell for close to what they cost brand new just months earlier, and in some limited colorways, they sell for more. A product doesn't hold value like that because the cowhide inside it got more expensive. It holds value like that because Chanel has convinced the market that owning one, at any price, is worth fighting for. So here's my actual take on this. Chanel isn't running a scam in the criminal sense. Nothing here is illegal, and the leather, the craftsmanship, and the labor are all genuinely real costs that have genuinely gone up over time. But rising production costs is being used as a blanket explanation for a pricing strategy that has far more to do with engineered scarcity, a purchase quota system, and a deliberate decision to position this bag as an appreciating asset rather than a fashion accessory. The real reason this bag costs $13,200 has less to do with what it cost Chanel to make it, and a lot more to do with how much they've figured out people will still pay for the feeling of getting one before their friend does. So where does this go from here? If Chanel keeps its recent pattern of 2 price increases a year, expect the Maxi Classic flap to cross the $14,000 mark sometime in 2027, with the medium likely landing close to $12,500. Watch the quota policy too. If Chanel tightens it further, that's a signal they're leaning even harder into scarcity as the main growth lever, rather than any actual material story. Now I want to know what you think. If you already own one of these bags, does knowing the real math change how you feel about it? And if $13,200 is genuinely out of reach for you, would you rather buy pre-owned at a discount or wait and save for the real thing? Tell me in the comments below. And if you want to see us break down which luxury brand is next, drop the name and we'll take it apart the same way. See you in the next video.